You
So
looked gorgeous, by the way.
thank you. I was like, oh, I'm gonna put on makeup. So I slapped on like whatever I could. I was like I haven't done eyeliner in months. I'm like trying to get it.
I don't think my eyeliner, I think it's dried up because it's been some time since I've used it. Uh, Probably should look at it, but it's more like Schrodinger's cat. Like, if I don't look at it, it's fine.
I mean, it exists both in reality and not. That's what it is.
Precisely. It is
So,
both dry and fully functional eyeliner at the same time. Thank you, Jay.
hey guys. Oh man. I mean, that and also my contouring. My contouring is also non-existent at this point. I'm just like,
I'm too scared to ask how to, like, actually, like, I know the
when you're pale?
gist. Right. I know the
Yeah.
gist of how to do it, technically, because I've seen so many videos doing it, but it always looks bad.
Because they don't tell you that like when you're ghost pale, like the way we are, you have to use a very specific type of like contour, which is just like halfway eggshell white to slight brown, but it has to be an ash brown because otherwise then you look like you're painting yourself orange. So yeah, it all depends on the color you're using, and you has to be really light color. You can't just use like the regular contour tools. It's not gonna work
I
on you.
Yeah, I made the mistake of buying just this. It was like an Elf brand. It was like universal contour stick. I was like, that's for me.
Well, you know how like when you go buy paint to like paint a room and it's like, do you want satin finish and then you want eggshell white, true white? You've got to go for like eggshell as your contour shade, not as like not like what they're actually using, which is like a contour powder. So
Right. I also like I've tried before, but mostly I just end up doing like blush across my nose and just hoping for the best. Just going with like eyeshadow and lipstick. I can do eyeshadow and lipstick. That's about it.
my when I was a kid, my mom bought Making Faces by Kevin Akon, and that was like my Bible learning growing up. Because before that, I was just like I was obsessed with the like theatrical play Cats, and I used to steal my mother's makeup and put it in me and my brothers in cat makeup. And I think she thought this would be a much better use of my time.
So, I love the energy.
Yes,
Picasso, take it over there.
yeah. So I mean, she loves makeup too, so it helps. But so it was really for her, but I just like stole it anyway, and I was like,
This is gonna be so much fun. I'm gonna make a painting.
it was really like no, like if you go through the stuff, it's like oh wow, this is like really was like OG what people were doing for a long time. And like Kevin Akon was interesting because he's like he's gay and like came from like a lot of gay culture, so a lot of the contouring and stuff comes from like drag culture that we've been having. But yeah, it was fun.
And unfortunately, like, there's a thin line when it comes to being as pale as we are, which is like, it looks natural or it looks like I'm trying to be seen from the top of the stadium. That's
Exactly.
not a healthy medium. So, but
It's okay
anyway,
being pale. It just sucks when we get warm because then we turn into red. That's what.
and I can't get rid of the red for days, or
No,
like my freckles will come in real dark, and like that's really cute, but they're like everywhere, and then it just makes me look splotchier, and I'm just
I don't
there's
even
no
get
happy medium.
freckles. It just goes from like pancake batter to tomato and like no time flat. And it's very funny because like my mother-in-law like I like if I get out of the shower and like you know how your face is like bright red after it's been in heat, and she
Yes,
looks at me, she's like, "What happened to you? Is something okay?" I'm like, "I was just the
outside.
capillaries are at the surface. There's nothing filtering it. There's no melanin here to disguise it. It's gone. It's all there. You can just see the blood flow."
I apologize for being pale. The lights of Gondor are lit. Gondor
Yeah.
calls for aid. I'm sorry. I'm upsetting you with my paleness. Uh,
Hey, everything.
just complaining about pale girl problems,
Yeah.
and how the sun is my literal enemy. And I live in Florida, so like
I
it's
live in Florida
always.
too.
Actually, where are you at? If you
I'm
don't
in
mind.
South Florida. I'm in Broward.
I'm in Cocoa.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Yeah, no, we both got screwed. We're in an environment that doesn't love us at all.
And what's worse is like my husband as a mechanic, he works outside all the time. He gets a nice like tan
Tan.
that is even. He's never burned a day in his life, and we've spent like a whole day at the beach once. I became a tomato in less than 20 minutes.
I'm Latin American, and my family is brown, and so they never put sunblock on me growing up because they were like, who needs that?
Right, she'll grow into it. It'll be fine.
So they'll be okay. And like everybody's brown, and I was like, oh, whatever, whatever, whatever. Get the stop complaining about the sun. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I got skin cancer at the age of 28, and now I have two nieces, and one of them, my nieces, for my brother. My brother's very dark. His girlfriend is very dark, and the daughter is very, very pale. And I'm always running after them, like, you need to put sunblock on her. She's gonna suffer like I did.
Put sunscreen on the baby. Unfortunately, most of my family is Russian, and then the other part is German. So I am, how you say, whipped cream. And my father's side of the family, which I have a lot of, they're more of they can tan easily. My mother's side, however, we're tomato people.
Yeah.
So when we went to my father's family for a vacation and we were all outside, my mother was like, she needs to be bathing in sunscreen.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was like, no, she'll be fine. She'll tan a little bit. Once she burns, it'll tan over. I got a heat stroke and sunburned to the point my skin like lizard peeled back. So like I sympathize with you. It was one of those where I was laying I was laying in a bathtub full of Earl Grey tea.
Oh my god.
Days. And I actually got paler after everything peeled off. It was like, oh, whatever layer you had, gone. Start fresh.
Yeah, when you peel it, like, people get like some people get like color from it, and I do not. I just get like it peels, it goes red, and then it goes white.
Yes. Immediately just going like, right back to being pale.
The skin was like, this is vengeance, how dare. And when I was in high school, my friends and I would like go get fake tan, or like they do the spray tan thing and stuff like that, because I was like, oh, maybe we'll do that. That also didn't look good. That also no.
Unfortunately, I become Orange Man, but with pink hair, and I learned. Yeah, my skin exactly, MP. My skin doesn't know what tan is. It knows what freckles are. And so like if I tried once for my senior prom to put self tanner on.
Yeah.
I immediately had to scrub like I were trying to get.
You get streaky.
Right.
It's great. Gross. Yeah.
Streaky. No. It wasn't even tan. It was oil slick colored. It was.
No. I like how Ruthie's like, oh, y'all convert vitamin D more efficiently than you. You know what's funny about that? Guess who's vitamin D deficient and has to take supplements?
It's because we avoid the sun.
You can't avoid the sun. It's everywhere. We live in Florida. I walk out to the mailbox. I've got like enough,
Right, little brain over your nose sunscreen. Full Nigel Thornberry over your face.
I only use like the zinc sunblock because after my skin cancer, my plastic surgeon's sitting there and he's like, do you wear sunblock every day? I said, yeah. And then I'm like, oh, the Neutrogena. He goes, you can't use that. You have to use the zinc stuff. You can't, the other stuff isn't going to work for you. You have to do the very major one you have to apply every 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks.
So now I look like super pale, right? And then I dyed my hair red. And so then I was like putting this on, and I have to make sure I have eyebrows on along with my like sunblock, because otherwise I look like Ronald McDonald. And like there's no way to get. You live in a place. I know. No, I know. Maybe I should be in a colder climate. However, I also hate the cold, and I am a small Caribbean flower.
So like, damned if you do, damned if you don't, because you need the warmth like a lizard does the sun. But like also, I would like to be under an umbrella 24/7, please.
It was not good. All right, so what were we supposed to be talking about today, aside from complaining about our skin problems?
Well, I was pulling you in here today to do an other interview. So the first and the easiest question is introduce yourself, any books that you currently have, where people can find you, and, general introductory stuff.
I am Laura Díaz Arce. I go back at the author. I am a multi-genre author, mostly horror and romance. I write horror that's so scary it's sexy, and write romance that's so sexy it's scary. You can find I have 3 books out. Currently, I have 2 short story collections. One is Monstrosity. Hold on, I have actual physical copies.
Props! I love props!
I am a prop person. Okay, that was a lie. I have the other ones are hanging somewhere. So this is my first short story collection from a couple of years ago. It's Monstrosity. It conceptualizes what it means to be a monster. I have a gothic fantasy romance, but that is getting a new edition that's coming out in a couple months called Mask of the Nobleman. That ends on a cliffhanger, but the sequel's coming out later this year. And then I also have another short story collection called In Absence, which is short stories, kind of horror, sci-fi, fantasy stories that are centered around grief. So, fun times. But it actually has I think it has some comedy in it. So, you got to take it with a grain of salt. I know you're reading it for Mask of the Nobleman too. I am working on I'm in the middle of revisions on that. I didn't realize how much mythology I had put in the first book, and then I had to condense all the stuff in the first book and expand the mythology in the second book, and I'm like, this is a lot.
Yes, a problem I've made myself. Yeah. Awesome.
You know what's really shitty is when you write your first draft, you write your novel, and you're like, nobody's going to pick up on this, and then you throw something in there that's mythology based, and then you're like, oh no, I actually have to use that now. I can't get rid of it. I can't pretend like it didn't exist. We're going to try and turn this into a motif.
Retcon everything. Out you go, out you go.
I don't like the name for that god, but we're stuck with it now anyway.
When you throw something in and you're like, oh, this is just to have a thing in here, and then all of a sudden people are like, I really want to know about Mephistopheles. No, it was in one sentence.
Present Keta problems, yes, was oh no, that's future Keta issue. No, future Keta issue sitting there with a board like Charlie Day in Always Sunny going, okay, so if I put this here, this is not what I wanted to happen, but now I'm stuck with it. So.
Oh man, if it's not the consequences to my own actions.
Oh god, I always used to kind of slightly make fun of the people that were really fantasy minded, and they have books and books and books of just their own mythology, and everything's mapped out. I'm like, it's a lot of work. Now I know.
Yeah.
Now I know.
And Wizards is not me right now working on something sci-fi, and I was like, I'm not gonna be one of those authors who has a dictionary. You're not gonna need it. No. I've got 2 pages already. I'm like, oh, they need to remember this word, and they need to remember this word.
Oh my god, the terrible trials of a pantser, just sitting there going, oh crap, I have to actually follow through on the things I wrote.
I don't plan for anything. You think there's not just 2 brain cells in the back just typing furiously? We'll figure it out.
I'm glad your brain cells are doing. One of my brain cells is on ADHD medication and still isn't functioning. So
there's just a lot of fire and screaming behind these eyes. Nobody sees.
One brain cell is showing the other brain cell close-up magic. That's what's going on.
Precisely, it's is this your card? That's almost my card.
Nope. This one, okay, kind of. Sure, let's go.
Let's go with that. It's fine. So if readers wanted to find any of your stuff, do you have a website, an Instagram, a link tree?
So I'm on TikTok. I am also on Instagram, and I'm on Twitter, although I'm not much on Twitter anymore because, the hellscape. But I'm contactable there. You can also find me on my website, which is lauradiazafstay.com. That's also linked in my bio. I have all my links there as well, and places you can buy my books. They're available wide, so they are available in, of course, Amazon, Walmart, Target, Books A Million, just a bunch of places. And they've also been translated. So In Absence is available in Spanish, Portuguese, and Greek now. And then Monstrosities in Spanish. And I believe Mask of the Nobleman is both in Spanish and in Portuguese. Or it might just be in Portuguese right now. But I know Spanish is coming on that one too. So. And they're available internationally. I'm pretty big in the Philippines. Actually, no, it was just one book. It was I had a little fan club there. That was very interesting. experience.
It's so fun to like find out where you have like little fan clubs. It's even weirder like when it's online and you happen upon them, like little pockets, and you're like,
Yeah, I'm like, how do you even find out about me? Like I'm so used to like hand selling my book at like conventions, and then like I get like contacted. Oh, I love this story. I'm like, how did you even know I exist?
who
And this
are
great
you
plane of billions of
people?
people. So
I
it's not
feel
like I
that.
do a lot of advertising, and I'm not even sure what kind of advertising the publisher does. They just kind of like send me quarterly
Right.
reports, and I'm like, I don't know how to read these, but okay.
I remember that with NSP. They're like, and here are the list of like art readers or whatever we've gathered. I was like, I don't know who these people are. That's great. Whoever you choose is fine. And they're
Yeah,
like, this is like all your stats and stuff. I was like, the numbers are cool. I
yeah.
write books.
It's like some of these are coming in because it's like sold internationally. It's like in like other currencies, and I'm like, I don't even know what the conversion rate on any of these is. It's like $3 Canadian good, I guess.
This is
How
like
many
that.
copies do we sell? Like,
I have no frame of reference. Or this is good or bad, or like I have no idea what's going to
yeah,
actually hit my bank account. We're gonna find out.
I just get my little check at the end of the day, and I'm like, okay, this is nice.
This is great. I enjoyed this part. Uh, so then, with you being a white author, um, and having books in other languages and internationally and stuff, what is something that you've kind of seen as either like a win or a great success in your last year or since you started publishing?
I mean, I think it's really cool to see like an international audience. It was okay. This was very nice. So the publisher that I'm with contracts out to a company to do the translations, and the translators basically get to pick the projects they want to do. So they'll like I guess they send out like a summary and like some excerpts. And then people can, if they want to option the option to read the book and then decide whether or not they want to translate it or not. And I got this very lovely letter from the Portuguese translator for In Absence, who was like, he's like, I was really moved by all your work. And I really loved the sensitivity with which you wrote things, and I thought this was excellent, and I'm very excited to do the translation for this. He just like emailed me out of the blue to tell me that, and I was like, that was really nice. You know, it's really nice when it's like a professional person who probably he's done other ones and stuff like that, and he's like, oh no, this work speaks to me, and I want to do that. So I can't read what he translated, but but it was
Like,
really nice.
I'm gonna have to trust your word, but your email is making me scream. Oh my god. That is so exciting.
Yeah.
Uh, what are some other possibly like maybe not so glamorous parts of being an author who is wide?
I mean, I've kind of cheated a little bit because I got this publisher through. So what happened? My kind of publishing journey is weird. I started off in like doing small pub, self pub. I was part of a like writer collective, which completely collapsed. And then I self pubbed my first book, Monstrosity, and then I had made friends with other writers. And this writer for this publisher, Next Chapter, who I was really good friends with, and I sent in my book, and we trade books all the time. He was like, I really like this book. I'm going to send you as a recommendation to my publisher. And so he wrote this whole long letter to his publisher, and then the publisher contacted me, and that's how I ended up signing on. So it's a really weird journey as to how that happened, and it's you know they're still mid level like lower indie. They're still an indie pub, so
Right.
it is. I think what people don't realize is how much of your own advertising you have to do, no matter what your publication situation is.
Yes.
Um, and it is a lot. And that is the shitty part about it, is that you have to sit there and you kind of have to figure out. And I think it's kind of weirder, you know, because a lot of published authors definitely make substantially more money than I do. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you guys can also track your own marketing and see what works or what doesn't. I don't
Mhm.
get that. I don't see the back end of like my Amazon. I don't see where I am ranking from day to day to day. I don't see those regular statistics. So I get my reports at the end of like a quarter, which is like 3 months removed from 3 months. And it's like, well, I don't know what worked or what didn't work as far as publishing. So that can be kind of a shitty thing. Um, so yeah. Um, as far as otherwise, I mean, I think for a time my sales dropped right after we went wide because we hadn't fully like used all of the different we used to be on Kindle Unlimited and then we left. And so in between that transition, my page reads didn't go, well, I didn't have page reads anymore, but like my general reads did go down for a short period of time, but they've picked back up. So, you know, it depends. But
Okay.
yeah.
Uh, what has been a learning curve that you've possibly hit that you either didn't expect or like hit you out of the blue?
In general,
Yeah.
the importance of revision. That is
Yeah.
definitely
No, that's fair.
and the importance of triple tracking before you send something off. Because my first edition of one of my books was sent out with the wrong edition, and then it got published, and it was like, oh no, we had to go ahead and redo it. So that was a whole yeah. So like this was a while ago, but yeah, making sure double checking everything. I understand that life is busy, and you should probably just make sure that everything is fine before you hit submit, or else you end up with margins that don't make sense.
No, no, yeah, that's fair.
So that'll hit you like a
Ton of bricks.
yeah.
Um, so then what is something other than double check before you print and absolutely do your revisions? If a new author were to see this live or see you and be like, I want to do that, what would be like the first thing you'd say?
Coffee is not a substitute for water.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a very like I used to be one of those people that would be like giving advice to like new authors, but now I'm like, we're all just kind of fucking up in different ways. So we're gonna find out which ways you're gonna fuck up that is gonna be unique to you and figure those problems out as you go. But like that, like it's my mistakes should not be your mistakes, but you're gonna probably make them anyway. Like we
Fair.
all do that. I would say, yeah, and don't quit your day job. I know there was this whole, I don't know if you heard about this whole viral thing where somebody was like putting out that, oh, if you want to be a real writer, you quit your day job. And in my head, I'm like, I took a class on financial personal investment and you do not want to do that at all.
You are not ready unless mommy and daddy are paying the rent
Yeah.
and the electricity and you solely are responsible for you, yourself, and I. Don't quit your day job.
No. Struggling is not good. It is not good for the artistic process. Whoever told you that was lying.
They're always like, but Van Gogh painted his best. Van Gogh also cut off his ear. He had a lot of issues. Don't emulate that.
He had to live off the charity of his brother for like his life. Like, wait, get yourself a rich brother that will take control and make sure that you can live your life.
And then you can paint your
Exactly.
sadness as artwork. Yeah, no.
No.
I heard, or I think I saw one TikTok where the girl was like, I'm just gonna quit my job and I'm ready to be a full-time author. And I was like, oh,
Oh, no.
that's a bad idea. And like, it was after one of her TikToks that gone viral. And so, of course, her book went a little viral. And like, that's great, but that's not sustainable. Like,
No,
you,
and it's hard. And the thing is, it's like, I would love to do this full time. I would love to do that full time. Although
oh,
emotionally, I know I couldn't do this full time, even if I had the money to do it full time, only because I grew up and graduated at the time of the Great Recession when nobody could get a job and did not have steady income, and I refuse to live like that again. But but like, it's one thing if you have like a constancy, like that you're going to consistently get that kind of money, or like you can live on the low end of what your wages are, you bank your other wages. But it is very hard to do this as a living unless you're cranking out books on such a continuous basis, like you've got 10, 20 books already, or you have like an established team behind you. So like we're not all Stephen King.
yeah,
And I would highly suggest having a backup plan for cash.
right.
So
For when this, inevitably becomes a little pricier than you were expecting
exactly.
it to
I
be.
mean, you're at such a whim of market forces. One day like Amazon could decide to get rid of an entire genre of books or kick them all off for whatever reason, and all you're
Right.
stuck here without your biggest supplier, or there could be international discord, and somehow your book looks like it was pro-Russia in the pro-Ukraine-Russia thing, and now nobody wants to buy it for whatever reason. Like there's
Yeah. Like what do you do if you don't have an entire team behind you or you don't have steady readers? Like you can't expect one viral video to do well, especially
exactly
when that viral video also encourages and welcomes in the bad at the
Yeah.
same time it welcomes in the good. The amount of books that I've seen go super hyper viral and everyone like snatches it up real fast within a month have the worst of the worst reviews, like flag bombs to the Amazon, where people are just flagging it for this, that, and the other, because
Yeah.
people like to hate on things because it's popular. So like,
You can't rely only on this as your income. There's no, again, unless you have, I would say if you're going to do that, marry rich.
yes,
That's
very,
that's the
very
other
rich.
advice. Marry rich. That is really the key to being an author. I married a software engineer. I've I've got healthcare now. We're okay. Like
Right. We're at a good spot. It's fine.
really, we should start a dating service. It's like single authors to well-paying patrons,
Right. To
like pimping
very
them out.
well paying patrons who don't mind having a little gremlin sat at a desk hunched over for multiple
Yes.
hours.
Do you
If it
find
misses, it's fine.
do you find no showering for 3 days while working on like the end of a scene attractive? If so, these are your people.
Also, there's the random sobbing at 3 a.m. because we've hurt our own feelings.
Yes, exactly. Or just sitting there like watching the reviews come in on Amazon, like tick 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 tick, refresh
Like,
refresh
refresh,
refresh.
refresh, refresh. Please. Uh, there are multiple things that I think about. Like, man, I wonder if my husband still finds me attractive. The man has watched me like gargoyle hunch in a chair and type, and he's like, "You good?" Like, yeah, I'm fine. You haven't moved for several hours, babe. It's fine.
I'm just sitting in front of the computer and with that snuggy life, like with my coffee here. Comes and turns on the light. No, go away.
The light, it hurts us.
And the worst is like he tries to have these conversations with me, like a normal person, and like I'm just like so stuck in my head thinking about something that I'm writing, and he'll be like, "Yeah, are you paying attention to me? Huh? What? No." So I was thinking, and then back, just the brain is back into the thing that I have to problem solve in the writing.
I do that so much while driving, and like I'll be driving and thinking things through like plot wise and like doing it to the set like to the tempo of the music that I'm playing, because I have a very curated list of what I need for each book. And I'll be driving and all of a sudden you're like, "Hey babe, do you want coffee?" And I'm like, "Oh God,
You're
oh
here
my
too.
God, you every single time." He's like, "You forgot I was here, didn't you?" Yeah. A little bit.
It's hard.
Um
Writing's weird. It's such a weird life. This is not something you do if you're sane. Like this isn't something.
if you're a normal person, usually you probably don't write. I don't even think you really read all that often if you're normal, because I also find most of my readers are just as odd as me,
Yeah,
because that's where we go to find our people.
weirdos attract other weirdos. It's a like thing.
But speaking of writing and some of the quirks that come with it, uh, when you're getting ready to write, what is like your go-to like either ritual or mojo crafting? What gets you ready to get behind the keyboard?
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there. I'm a new mom. I am
Okay, yeah,
writing
no fair.
where I can write. I'm this close to just taking the netbook, my little like laptop with me while I'm on the toilet. That's where we're at. Like I am writing whenever I get a chance. Sometimes it's on my phone. Sometimes I can get my DJ to watch the baby for a little bit and then I can go and do some stuff. But for the most part, I don't know. I've never been a person that like needed a ritual. Like I need to be in a space. I do need privacy to write.
Mhm.
I do find that that's the case, and I have a hard time talking about what I'm writing while I'm writing it. You know what I mean? Like if I have like a project that I'm into, I don't want to disclose everything. Like I will lightly summarize it to DJ, and that's about it. And then nobody else gets to find out what I'm doing until it's like more done or whatever, or like it's either before or after. But if I'm in the process of writing something, like for months at a time, I won't talk about it.
It's
So
fair.
it's very weird. It's kind of hard to because I don't want people getting my head and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like they'll
Right, and I don't
people.
want you to mess up what I've already got
Yeah,
cooking up in there.
exactly. I mean, it's fried, it's pan fried and kind of burnt, but it's fine. It's mine. But like And the problem is like people do like it's a very sweet gesture is that they'll try and problem solve things for you. So like if you say, "Hey, I'm writing a book about a duck that learns how to drive a car," they're going to be like, "Well, what kind of car?" And it's like, "Have you thought about having them drive a truck? How about if they got on mopeds?" Like people want to give you ideas for your ideas,
It's like,
and
stop
it's like
it! You're writing it.
you don't understand. The problem is that I don't have ideas. The problem is I have too many, and none of them have focus.
Have you ever tried to corral about a dozen squirrels who are very hungry? That's what it's like in my brain
Yeah.
almost all of the time.
Oh, it's just it's like there's the ideas are there. Let me sort through the ideas. You have just taken my pile of like squirrels and put them mix match them. I wanted them this order.
Do not solve the ideas in my brain. I will solve the ideas in my brain. Uh,
Exactly.
I do have like a small cheat code sometimes when I'm stuck on something is I'll go to explain it to my husband, and this is usually what happens. He'll be like sitting at his desk editing a video or something, and I'll come in and be like, "All right, so I'm stuck with how Ragnar is trying to get from point A to point B, and like this is what's going on." And I'll get to the point where the problem is and go, "Oh, that's genius. Thank you, babe." And I'll walk away, and he's like, "What did I do?" Say anything.
It's called body doubling. There's all
It's
there.
just it's gotten used to me dumping everything, and then my brain immediately goes, "Wait a minute,"
No,
and
this is
that's
the thing
where
I
it's
like. Sometimes you
when I
just need to
solve it.
say it. Hear yourself say it, and then you'll figure it out on your own.
Right,
So
it just solves the problem so
yeah.
much faster.
I mean, it could be him,
But
could be a mannequin. Either way, it works, right? Like,
right, it's not that I need yeah the rubber duck debugger. When you just say the code out to a duck and it fixes it for you. But speaking of wonderfully fantastic problems to have, you're a multi-genre author, so you
yeah,
don't just write one genre or specifically like even one series.
yeah.
Um, so that comes with some amazing and horrific things. Uh, what are some of the good and bad about having a brain that allows you to write multi-genre?
I think it's very interesting to like, cause that was the only way I could describe what I was writing. Because what I'm writing is a lot of weird shit. Like that's the thing. Like, I have like in my latest collection, I have a story about a squid that falls in love and kills the thing of his affection. I
Oh
have like
no!
I have like a shape shifting beast, but it's a coming of age love story as well. I have a story about girls that are eating iguana hearts in order to obtain immortality. Like there's like it's just weird shit. Like I don't. I just like I would create these stories and I was like, I don't know where they fit. I guess they're horror. I guess they're science fiction. I guess they're fantasy. So I mean, for me, it was never like the genre came first. It was the idea and then the execution of the idea that came first. And then I'm here trying to somehow like glue on different types of genres, or like genre tags or things like that, or descriptions to these things that are ultimately just like really fucking weird. Like you like where do I put this? I put about like a revenge ghost in a village. I have like a but honestly, it's because the wind gave up the secrets of like whatever. Like I mean, I never was attached to genre in the way that I think we as like a readerly culture have become more and more so. I know the iguana hearts are raw, but they have to kill them by hand too. Um, it's also a coming of age story. It's really sweet. It's about friendship. Uh, like for me, it was always like I liked the concept. I take when I'm writing, I'm not sitting there going, "Oh, I'm going to write a romance story." Sometimes it kind of is like that, but it's more like I really wanted like with iguana hunting. The whole collection's based on grief, right? So for me, it was thinking about like longevity and stuff like that. And I have a whole bunch of iguanas in my backyard. Not
Yeah,
that I kill them. I don't eat them or kill them. I'm too much of a softie. But what was kind of going through my head is like how we deal with mortality, how we can deal with the pain of that. And so part of this is an exploration of what it means to live forever or to try to live forever. And that would mean having to bear through pain on a constant basis for years longer than most people are meant to. And so like, it's like this sort of discussion on that and like, what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to get used to? Like little things like that. Like the Beast of Many Faces is like about shape-shifting creature, but like a lot of it's also about a relationship to nature and how um, nature has its own objectives, and we have a violent relationship that is also ultimately very fruitful and necessary for us to survive, to the point where we now integrate ourselves with the nature. It's like those things are more interesting to me than like, well, I'm going to write a science fiction story because I want to write the science fiction story, start up with the thing. So it's
Fair.
both really fun because I get to do whatever the hell I want.
Yes.
It is very distressing, however, to try and advertise these works. Because I go, oh, it's kind of horror, it's kind of mythology. I got a story that's like a retelling of Orpheus and Eurydice, but it's on the subway, and Orpheus is kind of like a fuck boy. Like,
I love that.
so like,
Earlier,
like how do I made you this thing, and now you have to figure it out for yourself. Is where it
right,
is.
I made a thing.
Yeah,
Just read the thing, you'll like it.
yeah.
Paige asked earlier, do you use different pen names, or is everything under your regular pen name?
I'm lazy. I don't have a. I'm my own person, which is probably really distressing for people that like horror works, and then they go to the romance thing, and they're like, "What the fuck is this shit? What am I? Why am I reading about?
It's
Why
all
is
on
there
the
a sex
same
scene in
page,
here?"
baby. It's all on the same page.
Exactly. So it's like, again, also very confusing for a lot of people. But I'm like, you know what? I mean, you're readers. You should read the descriptions of things if you're gonna want to.
And also, as someone who is pretty much using her real name, I just, because Elizabeth's really long to put on a title, I just put Lizzie. It wasn't, everyone's like, why did you choose Lizzie? It's like, it's my name, and it's shorter than Elizabeth. It's
Yeah, I
about
make
it.
everybody spell out my last name, all spaces and everything, with an accent mark.
Excellent.
It's a form of dominance.
This is a power play, and
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
winning.
So no, I don't. I do have. I will say I do have a pen name for like some Vela works that I've been doing, because it absolutely does not match anything that I currently do. But I'm not sharing that because this is for me to explore what it is to be an anonymous author. That's what it's more for me.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I'm not sharing that, and I don't share it on here. But like I do have a Vela story that's out, and I have another Vela story that's going to be coming out
That's fair.
in a thing. But it's like, you know, but it's kind of nice to not be the person that you are and not have your writing attached to you as a person. It's like fun to be that sort of like fantasy of an anonymous author that we used to have like in the 90s before the internet was a thing.
Right,
So,
before Twitter, and your face was on TikTok, and it had to be on TikTok, or else no one
yeah,
was going to know who you are.
exactly. So, well, I mean, people just still don't know my face. I'm sure people are like have seen my videos, which are all 90% of that googly eye filter. And, and then I come on here and they're like, who is this bitch? Like, she sounds
People
familiar.
only know you by your eyes and your mouth.
You know, exactly. It's like this. Do you now remember me? Like,
Also, hands down, one of my favorite filters we've ever put on this app. I love it so much. I keep putting it over like my covers and stuff.
I do too. I mean, it helped that like two of my covers has faces on them, so it helped to like.
Right.
But it's also like, well, why am I gonna bother? Oh,
I also I did it with Kate Nick's art she made me.
yeah.
So I put my eyes over Ophelia's eyes, and it looked funny. I shouldn't be allowed to have this much fun with the app, but yeah, no, I was having a good time.
See, my problem is that because I did all my videos in that filter, now whenever my face comes on to any of the TikTok videos, it tanks my views. Nobody wants to see my face; they only
Right.
want the filter.
They just want the eyeballs and your mouth
That the rest
moving.
of you can go away. We want the eyeballs and the mouth. Everything else is
It sucks when you train the algorithm to accept certain forms of your content, and you're like, I want to branch out, and it was like, nope.
the algorithm. People are just offended by the rest of my face now. I don't think that's like. I think it's the algorithm doing anything.
It's not the computer, it's the people. They're like, no, 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 no. I
No,
don't
no, no,
need the
no,
rest of
no,
your
no.
face. Just your eyeballs on the
All my
screen.
googly eyes.
But speaking of marketing, and since we kind of discussed it earlier, as an indie author, you have to do all of your own marketing. And as a published and like mini pub author, you also have to do all your marketing. And most trad pub people do as well. Very little is done by the company. So
No.
Um, what are
Especially after
some
that
like
trial, that merger trial, when we found out they ain't doing any advertising. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Random House is like, just like, I don't know. We just like cut off a chicken's head and let her walk around, and that's how we decided our marketing program.
it's like, oh, which books are we going to market? I don't know. That one.
Why are we doing
Are
this
you
business?
sure?
I don't know.
That one.
Yeah, exactly.
So what has been some either some tips and tricks or maybe just a summary of what it's been like marketing for yourself and your multi-genre-ness?
A summary is I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think anybody knows what to do. I'm not very good at it. Like, I will maybe mention like every fifth like video that I have a book somewhere. It's more like begging people to read it at this point. I found that my marketing was better done, honestly, when I was doing it in person. So before like the plague,
Yeah.
when I would go to conventions and stuff like that and hand sell my book, or if I would go to like, I did a lot of panels, and a lot of them were really informative panels. It was like how to do a revision. It was, special topics or whatever. I like doing that. That for me is fun. And I find like that's easier. And really, the key to marketing is getting other people to do it for you. Having friends that will send out your stuff to other people. When we're at like a convention, my husband is a carnival barker. As far as what's concerned, he just harasses people until they buy my book.
Hey, if it
It's
works.
very funny. Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. It's really kind of distressing. And then you kind of like coordinate, but like part of it is also like coordinating with other people that you have like I guess like interest with, and other authors and stuff like that, and cross promoting and when you can. That I do find is really helpful. That helps you get to other readers and everything like that. But I mean, it's 90% of advertising, and this is the ironic part. I used to work for an advertising agency. I can't do this for myself though. So 90% is just awareness, is like people just need to know that your book exists, period. And then they will either find out that they like it or not. But definitely sending out our copies, coordinating with other authors that you like, or like you're friendly with, getting a sense of like read likes people that are similar to what your genre is. So for like my romance, it's often like Grace Draven is who gets compared. This is going to sound super egotistical, but the number one person I get compared with for short story stuff is Neil Gaiman. So it's like you go for readers that read those things, and you're like, okay, these are the kind of things you might like. But you can't say you're like them, because then it looks like you're too big for your britches. So
It's fair.
yeah,
And it's one of those like I'm not trying to be egotistical, but
yeah. This is who, and it's very funny because one time I have a friend who's like a professional writer who writes like a lot of like comics and stuff like that. He's very very good, and he was like, he gave me a review of my book, and he's like, and like secretly he goes, I love this. He goes, this is a collection a lot like the way I feel about my Neil Gaiman collections. It's like I love every story in it. I'm like, can I use that? He's like, no, because people will harass you. And I'm like, okay, I won't say that specifically.
Right.
Because he likes every book,
Right.
every story in here. So
The problem is like the second you say that you're like someone or someone else is like, this is the worst one I hated was like when people were saying new horror authors were the new Stephen King. Everyone was like, oh yeah, I'll be the judge of that.
no, no one's like Stephen King. Stephen King gets to do this 24/7.
Right.
I live in a giant house for it.
Whatever he wants to write. They're like, oh, it's Insta Gold, and they just throw money at it.
And to be fair, some of them were really shitty books too. So like,
yeah, no.
but he's got some really not great
to,
feelings about Woody Allen. So like, I'm like, you know what? Let's not defend Woody Allen in this situation. There.
Not to bring on the haters or anything, but everyone really hyped up Cell. I couldn't get past the 4th chapter because the idea of your brains leaking out of your ears because you put your cell phone to your ear is such a boomer idea. I couldn't do it.
I mean, I'm sure it killed at like the senior centers, like as far as like,
yeah. You notice how like everyone who loves that book is far older than we are.
They're all
like, he predicted the future.
You can't get mad at them. They got a free copy with their social security check. Like there's no.
If I'm being honest, Desperation could have been 500 pages less if one of those characters had an iota of common sense. Oh man, this doesn't look like a safe place to be. Let's go.
I will say the best summary about a horror things about the suspension of disbelief is the idea that you have to remember that characters in a horror book don't know they're in a horror book, so they're not going to be reacting like they're in horror. And I was like, oh, that explains everything because I'm a dumbass on a regular basis. If I hear a weird sound, I'm like, oh, what the hell is that? I don't have any ominous music going on in the background of my life. Like it's just like this is just what's happening.
Right? There's a rustling outside my window. Oh, let me just pull back the curtain and
Let me
see what it
see.
is.
Is it my neighbors getting at it again? Let me go ahead and take a look.
Right? I just want to make sure the armadillo's not in my backyard again.
Strangers knocking at your house at 3 a.m. Oh, must be the Jehovah's Witnesses. Let me just go over there.
I'm like, I think my favorite horror novels, however, have to be when the characters are a little like like a little self-aware, and they're like, this is probably a bad idea, but I really don't have any other choices. Or worse, they think they're doing all the right stuff, and it's exactly what the Michael Myers of the book wants them to do, and it's like, aha, you're so smart, you fell into my trap. This was perfect. And it's like, hey, you can't win.
Hubris.
But I was defeated by my own hubris.
But yeah, it's. I mean, as far as where were we? I don't even remember what the question was.
Oh, talking about marketing and
yeah.
So because I know you write horror and romance, a question I really wanted to ask, because someone brought it up a while ago, and I like to get everyone's opinion on this. They have been saying that horror and romance are parallel to each other, but going in opposite directions. Horror and romance are the same story, but backwards. So if you're writing a horror story, usually it's like sweet or heartbreaking or something and emotional, and it ends up terrifying. But a romance usually starts off or has something terrifying that jettisons it into being sweet and romantic. Or you can have the same story, and the difference between horror and a romance is if the main male lead has money.
No, that's fair. No, I've always felt like horror and romance are sister genres, especially erotica and horror. Like body horror and erotica are very much the same genre. And no, like if you think about them, they're both very much genres about embodiment, right? You are supposed to be feeling like there's a lot of feeling based situations in both of these. So for horror, you're the same tools you would write horror, the same tools you would write like erotic romance or something like that. So a lot of focus on body detail, a lot of on discussions on sensations of sights and sounds, stuff like that. In order for things to be compelling, you need to have like really interesting characters, and you have to have characters for which you have empathy for, and then maybe frustrated for. Like there's a sense there, and then there, with thrillers, with mysteries, with most books, you want to have a sort of element of discovery for the reader. So you want some sort of mystery there, or something that the reader is supposed to discover as they go on. So in a horror book, it's the horror situation. It's why is the thing if it was a ghost story, it's like why did the ghost story happen, and then like how can you rectify it. For a romance, it's how were these people going to fall in love? Do they fall in love? Is it something worth? So you have the same tools that you use for either one. It's really not hard to go from one to the other for that reason, I think. Again, both embodiment, and they also tend to have a lot of flowery like language in the same way that like science fiction and fantasy, although are also kind of sister genres as well, because they both have these sorts of, they're often trying to answer these larger questions using narrative. Then horror and romance are all about being embodied in a situation. So yeah, I definitely buy that for monster romance.
And especially when monster romance and it's like slightly on the darker side, it's like, I get both my genres in one.
I should be a little spooked out by this.
Right? It would normally this be scary? Yes. Am I right now? What is that line from SNL? Mark me down as both scared and horny.
Is this like a horror moment, or is this foreplay? Which one are we at?
Like, roll of the dice. Is this about to be very, very bad for me, or very, very good? So then, is there a future where you have a horror romance where they're both together, or?
I mean, Could be. I'm not adverse to the possibility there. I've got so many other projects, so it's like, but it's never, again, for me, it's never like I start at the genre. It's usually I start at the idea and how's the best way to execute the idea. So like how do I make this world connect to the thing that I want it to do? So for like Mask of the Nobleman, that was more of me wanting to write a fairy tale retelling that was kind of closer to something where the magic isn't apparent at first. You have to kind of slowly become revealed to it, kind of like Game of Thrones. Like it
Mhm.
slowly becomes more of a reality in the book, but it's also like, how can I do this where magic is not? How can I make a plausible situation that would read as like a transformation story, and then also as like a love story? And how do you get these two people to come together? How do you find somebody who does not care about what someone looks like to the point where they're willing to give themselves up entirely? Um, so it's like, that was a fun thing because I got to build the challenge there. I got to develop characters that would like each other. I had to develop characters that lived in this world where one person couldn't show their body entirely, and then the other person was still fascinated enough to enjoy that body. How do we make these two types of people fall in love, and how can I create a sort of other commentary on that? So for me, it was a lot about exploring the like class, and a lot of it's also because it was kind of a love letter to like my local writing community. I like a lot of my friends are characters in this book. So my favorite is that somebody was like, Georgie doesn't sound realistic, and I'm like, Georgie's literally my buddy JD. Like,
How dare you not say he's a real person?
so they're really a person. They're like, this person sounds ridiculous. I'm like, yes, they are. That's what he is. Um, but you like, yeah, you just kind of, for me, was like, okay, how can I craft something here that is within that sort of fairy tale retelling, has the same sort of plot, but does it in a way that's interesting and also allows me to explore other things. So it's not just my love letter to like the artistic community. It's also an exploration of what it means to love art and what it is to make art, and um, how people function in different strata when creating art, and how that becomes a really nice little metaphor for love. So that's that's what came first, and then the genre was like, I guess it's romance, and then everyone's like, it doesn't have a happy ending. I'm like, it will in the second book, but all right, we're gonna go with gothic romance because there's a mystery, and you know,
Only
you get
technically is a romance. I mean, I guess possibly.
yeah, it's kind of like it's a love story ish, but like it ends on a cliffhanger, which everybody's still upset about. And I'm like, I get it, but I had to do that because when I went and did this whole thing, fairy tale retellings aren't necessarily just love stories. There's an adventure element, and so the second book is such a different book from the first book because the first book is kind of like this slow burn kind of romance with like a mystery in the center, and the second book is full on like Lord of the Rings adventure novel.
Ah,
It is a quest.
what
We
I've
are on
done
a
to
quest.
myself.
So
Okay, well,
it's you kind of have to like, yeah. So yeah, they're technically romance, but it's like this one's like a mystery romance, and then this one's like a quest at the end with a romance, and like there's a giant wooden snail involved, and like a nightmare god who's very sassy. Like I don't.
I love that.
So yeah. So that's kind of like.
So since sorry, someone was attempting to call me. How dare? Uh, it is 6 o'clock at night, my dude. Who calls
Yeah.
me? Um, but since you discussed earlier that you don't really talk about what you're currently working on until like it's a little bit more formulated,
Yeah.
um, and we've talked about the books that you do have out. Is there anything that you have coming out other than like book two, that you feel comfortable in discussing, or is everything still kind of under lock and key?
I mean, I'm working on stuff. I'm just like I'm not in like the work zone for them right now. So there's stuff that I've drafted and I've been working through, and kind of I think my next piece after the second the sequel to Mask of the Nobleman, which I'm not putting out the title yet. Or hold on, how many people? We got 3 people. The second book is called. So that's, but I'm not revealing that until my newsletter. So just don't tell anybody, please.
It's fair.
But the next thing that I'll probably do after that is this novella I've been working on about a robot that gets a human body because humans are dead. And so now like robots are bored and they have nothing to do. So they want to know what it's like to be human. So they start a little pet project kind of thing where they have like a simulation, but they also grow humans. And it's all about, again, it's about embodiment. It's about building society and building your in like understanding your body within relation to others, and like what are the things that come with having a human body? Is it like you know uh, it's pain, physical pain, it's desire, it's the way we feel about pleasure and the way that we feel about ourselves in space and relative space. So it's kind of also has a little bit. A lot of my stuff have love stories. It's got like a little bit of a love story there, and got like a little bit of a mystery, and that one's kind of interesting because it's like it's written from the point of very much this robot who like became a human and was unsatisfied like all of us and like for a long time, and it's like starts to learn.
I
So like
feel
you see
seen.
people, yeah, but like and it's kind of funny because we got like you get to these points where it's like all these different robots have started, like they've become like these bodies. Some of them have been there for a long time doing it longer, and it's like there are different like spaces of like this sort of metaphysical evolution for themselves. And so like there's like one couple that's like trying to figure out how sex works, and like they can't get it right, and like they don't know, like they've watched instruction manuals on it, like, and they keep trying to get more people involved because they're like, it feels good, I don't know. And everybody's like, leave the swingers alone.
Just leave them to their weird little pineapple
Exactly.
corner. It'll be fine.
Yeah. So it's fun. I think it's also like an exploration of like what happens when you're immortal and now you have mortality, or you have the possibility of mortality. What you take it, and it's kind of like this robot thinks that she'll just go ahead, and because once your body fails, you can get into a new body if you want to, and it's like you can do that perpetually, um, or you can go back to being a robot again. And it's like there's these conversations with these different robot people that are also within their own journeys about what they want to do. So for me, it was fun. It's fun so far. But
Yes.
that one's gonna be a four. And then I have another one that's like I call it like the story that's been told in four different versions of the story. So it's like the same story over and over again in different formats. So one is it's the fairy tale version, and then another one is an academic paper based on the history of the fairy tale version. Another one is like some like monks, like colonized rock monks that are telling the story from these native people. Like it's, and then like one of it's like a full long story, and then another one is what happened, because basically the idea is that this event keeps happening cyclically, and
Yeah.
so it gets told from multiple places, and then what happens when something breaks that cycle and then has to be, yeah. It's basically if the lost city of Atlantis was in the Bermuda Triangle. Like, that's how I'm putting it out. But
Okay.
it's that one's a long time coming. That one is going to need sensitivity readers. It is a complex story. It is the heart. It is one of those things where I have to grow into the writer I want to be to write that book. So
Ooh,
it's a
yes.
little bit harder. So that's another project.
Uh,
I got projects all day. I got another one that I want to do that my friend Margaret's been getting on me. It's like witches and vampires in space.
yes. Absolutely.
So that's another one. I like, and plus there's also another two books I want to do in the Mask of the Nobleman series. So one is like would be one of the side characters story, which I'm going to call Book of the Witch, and then the other one I've been calling Unnamed Gay Cruise Project, which is two of the queer characters go on an adventure. And two of my favorite characters write. That's what it is. Like so, yeah,
Fair.
yeah.
Uh, I love that. Um, so with Mask of the Nobleman, um, since that's kind of the thing that I've gathered is like what you're most known for. Uh,
Probably, yeah. Or Monstrosity. Monstrosity I'm known for, I think, more weirdly enough, I think.
so specifically then Monstrosity, then we'll tackle Mask of the Nobleman. Uh, how did Monstrosity come to be? What was the idea in your brain prior to putting words on paper?
I was writing a lot of these stories. I think I've always been like a really good short story writer. It just makes it I'm a better short story writer than I am a long like form writer. Just because I like the economy of it. I like the ability to do something pretty quick, and also like the challenge that's there where you have to create something really enthralling and interesting in a very short amount of time. But it allows you to kind of tackle any idea pretty well and pretty like interestingly. So I was writing a lot of short stories. I had like a bunch together, and then I was like, well, you know what do you do when you have a list of short stories? Some of them were published, some of them were not. And I was sitting there and I was like, well, putting them together as a collection, and it kind of like, oh, the theme started to kind of take hold. And it was like, clearly I've been doing a lot of stuff that was mostly based on identity. And like a lot of the work that I was working on at the time was like, how we see ourselves and how others see ourselves and stuff like that, and how we create ourselves in the mirror of what other people see. So monstrosities, just a bunch of them were like that. So I started sectioning them off. So I have the first section is Hominum, which is like human monsters, humans acting monstrously. And then I have Mutatio, which is people turning into things, or turning into monsters. And then I have my last one, which is Monstrum, which is our points of view from like the monster. And so like then I put in like stories that kind of like filled in the blank on that, where I thought there was, something to explore here or something to explore there. So it just kind of like that kind of worked out. I mean, there's some standalone stories that I like in there. Like I really like Plum Moon that I wrote. That's about a little space crew of like poor miners that go to start mining on this moon, and bad things start to happen.
As you do.
And the thing is, like, I've never seen Alien, and it's very funny because like I've never seen Alien. This book was like fully published. And he just like, I like the one that's like the alien. I was like, I don't know what that is. And so like, I knew what it was, but I'd never seen the movie. And then we were sitting there watching this movie. I'm like, God damn it. Like somebody stole this from my brain 30 years sooner than, but it's not like Alien. It's different. But yeah, like it's, the sort of sci-fi horror. I like, the West Chamberlain Bordello opens at 5. Everybody wants that to turn into like a full length book. And I'm like, that would be fun to do a full length book if I had the time. Changes in there is about a woman who has to become a goddess, and she has to go through this whole process to do it. And it really was me trying to do. I was trying to create a science fiction world that was Latin American. So basically, has the same sort of history of movement of like colonization, a sort of history of violence, and then the melding of cultures ultimately that creates a situation where these goddesses function in the way they do. And so it was like me going, well, we're going to put Latinos in space as what
I love that.
Yes, because as a Cuban, I needed to do that. So like, I had to have my people out there. So, like they're, what is it? The El Vendedor y la Bruja, or How the Weather Lost His Heart, which is about, it's like a little fairy tale, and that was kind of like a love letter for my grandfather, because he used to, it's written in kind of the way he used to talk, and so it's in English and in Spanish. So like love for me was also about expressing it in, of learning different languages or to understanding one another, even though we're not minded to be speaking the same thing. So that's what it is. It's like love is 2 languages, and that's what it was thematic. So that for me worked for Monstrosity. So that's, and it's very interesting because people will come up to me and like, I try to sometimes guess when they tell me which one's their favorite, and they'll tell me, and I'm like, that I did not expect that to be your favorite. But hardcover, softcover is funny because it's funny for me. That's about a succubus that owns an erotic bookstore. But she's a mom, and that's her whole thing. So like, it's good.
I love that.
Yeah.
So then kind of moving on to Mask of the Nobleman, same question. Where did that come from, or like what sparked the brain?
I think I was having a conversation with some friends about like fairy tale retellings and how popular. I was like, I should give that shit a shot. Why not? And like,
Fair.
And so I was like, well, what would I want to do? I'm like, I don't really want to do. So my background is like, I also have a graduate degree in English, and my thesis was on Cinderella. So like, so I consider myself a little bit of a folklorist and stuff like that, and like how folklore functions socially. And I was like, okay, but I didn't want to do Cinderella because I was over that shit. And I do like, but one of my favorite fairy tales is East of the Sun, West of the Moon. And so I was like, that would be an intriguing challenge. So the premise of East of the Sun, West of the Moon is that this girl ends up marrying this bear. So like bear, like bear. Yeah. So and it's and like he's rich. He takes her to this thing, and she never sees him. Except that night she gets a lover who comes in. And so one night, to see who the lover is, she turns on her light thinking that it's going to be some sort of monster. And no, it's this gorgeous man, like And it turns out he's cursed and he wasn't allowed to have her see him, so he like has to leave. And his like mother was an evil, I can't remember which verse I'm reading, but like the mother was the evil witch, and so like now the girl has to go on this journey. So it's based actually on like the, you know, most tale types are based on, like, a lot of them are Greek myths. So this is kind of based on the Cupid and Psyche mythology, where Cupid abducted Psyche, kept her in a palace full of servants, that she didn't see him or anything like that, except he would visit her at night. And so one night she wants to go see who her like lover is. And then Aphrodite has her shit spit and decides, like, no, you can't be with my son. And so that's why he's cursed. She's not allowed to be with him. And so she has to go through these sorts of trials and tribulations. So the first half of that is them falling in love. And so in the sense, in like Mass of the Nobleman, Doris Amoros is this duke who was apparently mauled when he was a child, or something happened, and he's unsightly. And so he covers himself from head to toe and he wears a mask. And people find this really unnerving. And for a long time, he hasn't really been active. His father was like this terrible tyrant duke. And like, he's been spending his time since his father died trying to rebuild the dukedom and trying to like reattain, like, just kind of build things back up to him for himself. Beatrice Psyche is our main character. She's a sculptor. In the society that I crafted here, arts are pretty well veneered, but her father's like a toy maker, which doesn't sound like a very like prestigious job, but in a situation there's a sort of artistry because toys are a luxury kind of, and so toys aren't just for children. It's also like, it's often like these sorts of clever mechanics and stuff like that. So her father is pretty well known as a well-known toy maker, but they're worried about, you know, not being able to sell his objects at full price if they know that she's also the carver on it. So she has to live in the shadow of her father's situation. So she ends up entering in contact with one of the sculptors. She doesn't win, but through one event or another, which I have faithfully crafted and did not seem like at all ham-fisted, she and the Duke meet again, and he hires her to come and be his sculptor. And that's, you know, then they kind of like start to fall in love. But there's like a whole cast of characters that are based on my annoying friends. Like,
I love that.
yeah, so it's fun. I mean, and like part of it is like, how do you fall in love with somebody that you don't necessarily see, which I think is actually really plausible for most people, because, a lot of people fall in love online, or they fall in love, a person that doesn't have sight, you may not, you may also fall in love with somebody, but, how do you create intimacy when you feel like the other person isn't trusting you? And so it's,
right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of there. So, and part of it is that he's a very sweet person, and I wanted to have that. I didn't necessarily want to have like an alcohol. I wanted somebody who's kind. I thought that would work better with Petra because she's a little bit hot-headed, and she's also kind of like impulsive. And I feel like he kind of balances a little bit of that out because he really does appreciate her as a person. So,
yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah. So without spoiling too much, where do we start with our second book that will remain unnamed due to copyright infringement?
When we start with the second book is we literally leave off exactly at the cliffhanger of the first book. So the cliffhanger happens, and I got yelled at, and the person who actually who is actually Corey is based off of in the book, literally commented, she goes, "I threw this book across the room. I'm so fucking pissed at you." So I got the message. So Corey's one of the characters, and then my friend Corinne is actually who I based that off of. And yeah. So the cliffhanger happens, and then in the next book, it literally takes place right at that cliffhanger, and then we just go with the action, and it is a race and a quest. So,
yeah. So what is something you're excited for if you get like new readers or readers fall in love with your work? What is something you're excited for them to experience with your works that you have?
I think my bigger joy I'm not a person that really needs people to come up to me and tell them I really liked your book. I think for one thing, I'm an awkward person. It makes me very uncomfortable. But fair. I like it when people talk about my work in reference to themselves, like whether they connected to something or they find something interesting. One of the best things that ever happened, I think, as a writer was there's one of my stories in here, There's No Me, there without him and him or him, There Is No Me, was published in another collection called Tragedy Games. And this woman on Twitter did a long Twitter analysis of the story, and it was fascinating. it was completely wrong from what I was doing, but it was fascinating. I was like, well, I mean, it could be right. I mean, like you read it, it's your story now. But I was like, this is so cool. I love because I'm a little academic, so it's like I love it when people like just go through and pick things out, and like that's for me is the exciting part. It's like if you get to like pick out motifs, if you get to kind of try to read in between the lines or find things that are interesting to you, that's much more interesting for me. You know, am I
Yeah.
making an allusion to this writer? And maybe, maybe not. Are you like, is this in conversation with this other work? What does it mean in the great, like, I would love to see analyses. The analyses to me, even if they're like not at all what I was thinking, I will never say whether or not they are. I think that to me is more interesting. So,
I am also a fan of like when people start to theorize or like make these almost like fan fiction canon ideas of, oh, they're gonna do this with the next book. It's like, no, I wasn't, but that's a pretty good idea though.
yeah. Or maybe I was.
Maybe I am now, but I also enjoy finding people being like, and this quote really spoke to me, and it really like it's foreshadowing for this part, and blah blah blah. And I was like, oh, that's
I mean,
smart of me.
totally meant to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%.
Me and my
They
pants
don't,
master are like, I pulled that out of my ass.
they don't know we're tripping our way through this, do they? Like that's,
I've been told like some imagery was like brilliant. And they're like, it just totally pulled everything together. I was like, I
yep.
thought it looked pretty in my brain.
I just like that word. Like,
I
it
just
was my
really
word
like
of the day on that calendar.
I just really like the word viscous. It just has a specific sound and it like it's a visceral reaction. And
Exactly. Oh god.
to think that I am a genius behind the brain when really I'm just a cat running a wheel and the wheel's going backwards. High compliments.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, yeah, go ahead. I would love to see this.
It's like I love to see what you picked out. I would have never guessed, but um speaking of this analysis that you got, what is some other things that like your readers have either not necessarily called you out on, but like maybe like top quotes or your favorite kind of review of some of your works?
I mean, it's very nice when I get a couple of people that are like, "You're not my new favorite writer." I was like, "Oh, that's cool. No pressure at all." Wait, don't wait on that too long. I'm going to disappoint you. It'll be okay. I mean, I think it's nice when people find something that works for them. I think it's one of those things where it's like it's kind of hard for me to do because I'm like I dodge compliments. Like, yeah, like I'm at a firing squad. Like we're like I'm not we ain't doing this. So I don't actually read reviews. I won't. I really rarely will read any of the reviews. I try to make sure that that is a space for people who are reviewing the book to do so. Also, because it's like even a good review might have like a an edge to it that's going to make me super insecure for like the rest of the day. So it's like there's
Yep.
no. I'm not. It's not helping me be a better writer. Trust me. Like I'm just going to fixate on the fact that you said this specific thing about this part, and it's going to be in my brain forever. So,
I
so I
didn't
don't
like the
really
sound
read.
of her flip flops. Well, now that's all I'm gonna
Yeah.
hear.
Like I found this queer character too queer, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry for you. But
Let me crank it up a notch.
somebody was like, Elle is like one of the characters in Master of the Nobleman is like just like this like terrible like this is like I saw it on a tweet was like it's just like this terrible representation of like queer people, and I'm like I based Elle on me like like, like good sir.
Ouch.
Well, I am a terrible representative for queer people, obviously.
That's just who I am.
Like,
It's a
like the
realistic
two people that
representation.
I pour most of my personality to are the ones that get the most hate. And I'm like, well, that fucking sucks. That's what
Ouch. I'm like,
no,
why?
these are the people that I wish I could be. Like, that's the problem. They're both just like absolute and utter chaos and like totally saucy. And I'm like, this is what I would aspire to, is to be just absolutely sarcastic and flirtatious 100% of the time.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that for you. Um,
So,
so One of the last few questions that I like to ask is if you had the spoons, and like it doesn't have to do anything with writing. If you had the spoons and time, money, and effort weren't like an obstacle, what would you be doing right now?
Writing.
Fair.
It's my favorite thing to do. I mean, the best part about writing is the writing part. Everything else, the advertising, the trying to format shit, the coming up with quotes to put on your Instagram posts, like that all is misery compared to what it actually is. The writing is the joy. Everything else is, side
Dumb.
work. Yeah,
Hate admin work.
so much. It's like,
Um,
let me format this page 4 or 5 times.
like the italics is just 0.001 over the line.
See, if I was rich, I would have other people to do that shit for me, and then I could just go and do the writing part, and
Right?
then I could
Just like
throw it to
here's
somebody
a
else.
ugly Word document. Have fun with it. And on the next one.
Here, you pick the quotes, put them on the make the Instagram post. So I'm gonna go take a nap.
Right? um, so then the second is if there is something you want people to know about your brand or to expect. I know it's going to be kind of hard as a multi-genre author and kind of chasing whatever comes into your brain, but something that is wholly you in all of your books that you hope shines through. What is like your brand or your what you want people to see?
I mean, Nemi did call me a chaos goblin once, and I feel like that's really my brand at this point. Um, I think if you're like queer and like weird like love stories at the base of things, I think that's what you're gonna find. I think you're gonna find a lot of stuff on identity and conceptualization. I think for so for like, monstrosity was all about like, how we construct ourselves and how we are constructed by others. And like in absence is more about like what do we do when we experience loss in all its different forms? What do we do when things change and they're not favorable to us? How do we adapt? How do we learn? I think if you're a person that likes big ideas and stuff like that and likes to explore that, I think you might like it. Um, you have to be willing to deal with a little bit of flowery language and a lot of metaphor and a lot of allegory, which some people hate allegory. So, if you're J.R.R. Tolkien, this is not for you. But if you like, puzzles is what it is. There's a lot of like, you can either enjoy the story as it is, or there's a lot of like little breadcrumbs and stuff like that I leave in my stories. So there are different ways to explore it from going at different angles. Yeah, so it's weird as a multi-genre, but all of them have that where you can kind of pick out things. So
I love it. So then kind of the last thing is go ahead and reintroduce yourself, who you are, where people can find you, and what books they can find if they're ready and eager to devour what you've got.
So I am Laura Díaz Arce. I am a horror and romance author. I write horror that is so scary it's sexy, and a romance that's so sexy it's scary. And I stole that from one of my old bosses. Anyway,
Yes,
that was the rule at the
such a
library.
good line.
You can have your Halloween costumes, but you cannot dress so sexy it's scary, and you cannot dress so scary it's sexy. That was the line of what you were not allowed to dress at the library. Shout out to Alex and for that. But you can find me anywhere. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, and here as Get the Author. On my website, lauradiazarc.com, or you can go to gettheauthor.com forwards to that address. I have 3 books out. Monstrosity, In Absence, which are 2 short story collections. I would highly suggest starting there first. You can start a Monstrosity first and then get into In Absence. In Absence is a little bit heavier. Both the trigger warnings are all on my website. And Mask of the Nobleman is a romance, like gothic fantasy romance that lands on a cliffhanger. Wait on that one for another 2 months because the new version's coming out with less typos. And actually a little bit more consistency that's going to go with the next book because I had to double check names.
Fair.
Fair, yeah. So yeah, and while I was there and rooting around and fixing a couple things, I went ahead and added another passage or 2. So you might as well just stick around on that one. But yeah, you can find all of that wherever most books are sold. Barnes and Nobles, Books A Million, of course the Amazon. just a bunch of places. So yeah.
Excellent. So thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you
me
for
on
having
this
me.
interview.
This was
Uh,
good. This was fun.
the very last thing is there anything you wanted to shout out or talk about, or any last little tidbits you wanted to do before I outro and end the
Yeah.
stream?
Oh, hot tip: put crushed salt on top of your ice cream. A pinch of it. Hot tip.
Ooh, solid.
Only the most important of advice for writing. When you're sitting in front of in your underwear and with your big t-shirt, sitting in front and with your coffee, and you have your ice cream, this is a lifesaver.
This is what you need.
Little salt just right on top, like Salt Bay it, just a little bit.
I love that.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining me. This was fantastic. This was so fun.
This is fun.
And I enjoyed all of it. And I hope you feel thoroughly interviewed.
I do feel very interviewed. I also feel like I probably have to go nurse my child again.
Probably. Well, I'll keep this short. For everyone who is here, hi, my name is Lizzie Strong. I'm a monster romance author where the monsters are spooky, scary, but the romance is cute and cuddly. And you can find me at lizziestrongauthor.com. And this is my lovely friend, Keta, and absolutely follow her here on TikTok. And we bid you all adieu. Goodbye.
All right.